This is Egypt, 3,000 years ago. By the time most of the world was still figuring out how to build with stone, the Egyptians had already constructed the Great Pyramids, which had been standing at this point for over 2,000 years. Egypt was old. Egypt was wealthy. Egypt was, in many ways, the original superpower of the ancient world. And in this land, between the Nile and the desert, lived a civilization that loved one animal more than any other people in human history have ever loved an animal. That animal was the cat. To understand what happened on the day Egypt fell, we first have to understand this. In ancient Egypt, cats were not pets the way we think of pets today. Cats lived in homes, yes, but they were also considered sacred. They were the earthly representatives of the goddess Bastet, daughter of the sun god Ra. They were protectors of grain stores from rats. They were defenders against venomous snakes. They were believed to ward off evil spirits at night. Egyptian families fed their cats from their own plates, adorned them with gold collars, buried them in family tombs, mourned their deaths with the same intensity as the death of a family member. To touch a cat was to touch the divine. This was not religion practiced only by priests. This was everyday life for every Egyptian for nearly 3,000 years. Now let me set the scene for you precisely. The year is 525 BCE. Egypt is ruled by a young pharaoh named Psamtik III. He has been on the throne for only 6 months. To the east of Egypt, across the deserts of Sinai, lies the largest empire the world has ever seen, the Persian Empire. Its king, Cambyses II, has just inherited the throne from his legendary father, Cyrus the Great. Cyrus had already conquered Babylon, Lydia, and most of the known world. Now his son Cambyses wants the final great prize, the only major civilization still standing independent: Egypt. And so, Cambyses marches west with the largest army the ancient world has ever assembled. His destination? A small fortress city on the eastern edge of the Nile Delta, a city called Pelusium. What happened next at Pelusium is one of the most extraordinary military stories ever recorded, a story where the most powerful kingdom on Earth was defeated, not by superior weapons, not by a larger army, but by a small striped animal that a Persian soldier carried in his arms. This is the story of how cats, beloved, sacred, ordinary house cats, brought down the empire of the pharaohs. The story of how cats became gods in Egypt began nearly 9,000 years ago. Modern DNA evidence, published in 2017 in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution by Dr. Claudio Ottoni and his team, has proven that every domestic cat alive today descends from a single species, the African wildcat, Felis sylvestris libica. These cats first began approaching human settlements in the Near East around 7,500 BCE, when humans had just invented agriculture. The cats came for the rats that ate the stored grain. The humans welcomed them. By approximately 4000 BCE, cats had become fully integrated into Egyptian village life. By 2000 BCE, they appeared in religious art. And by 1000 BCE, they had become, without exaggeration, one of the most sacred creatures any civilization in history has ever worshipped. At the heart of Egyptian cat worship stood one goddess, Bastet. Her name in ancient Egyptian was Bist, meaning roughly, she of the ointment jar. Originally, in Egypt's oldest religious texts from around 2700 BCE, she was depicted as a lioness, fierce, powerful, a goddess of war and protection. But over time, as cats became more important to daily life, her image transformed. By the New Kingdom period, around 1500 BCE, Bastet was almost always shown as a cat, or as a woman with a cat's head. Her titles were many: Lady of the Two Lands, Daughter of Ra, the sun god, Mother of Cats, Protector of the Home. She was the goddess who blessed pregnant women, who guarded sleeping children, who defended families against evil spirits in the night. Every household in Egypt, from the simplest farmer's hut to the pharaoh's palace, had a small shrine to Bastet. And the living cat that slept by the fire? That cat was considered her physical presence in the home. And to protect these sacred animals, the Egyptians enacted some of the strictest animal protection laws in human history. Law 1, recorded by the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, who visited Egypt in the 1st century BCE. Whosoever kills a cat in Egypt, even by accident, is condemned to death. Diodorus described, as an eyewitness, a true incident he saw with his own eyes. A Roman citizen visiting Egypt accidentally killed a cat. An angry Egyptian mob surrounded the man and lynched him on the spot. Egyptian officials and even Roman diplomats tried to intervene to save him. The mob killed him anyway. To kill a cat was to commit a crime against the gods themselves. Law 2, recorded by Herodotus, who visited Egypt around 450 BCE. When a cat dies of natural causes in a household, all the inhabitants of the house shave their eyebrows. This was the deepest form of public mourning Egyptians had. Law 3, known from multiple administrative texts. Cats were considered such a vital national resource that exporting them was forbidden by royal decree. And Law 4, perhaps most extraordinary, Egyptian royal agents were actually sent to neighboring kingdoms specifically to find and bring back smuggled Egyptian cats. They were, essentially, the ancient world's first international wildlife protection officers. The center of cat worship in ancient Egypt was a city in the Nile Delta called Persian, which the Greeks later renamed Bubastis. Persian literally means House of Bastet. Its great temple, built during the reign of Pharaoh Osorkon II around 850 BCE, was described by the Greek historian Herodotus as one of the most beautiful religious buildings he had ever seen in his life. And Herodotus had seen the great temples of Athens, of Babylon, of Tyre. He still called Bubastis the most beautiful. The annual festival of Bastet at Bubastis was, according to Herodotus's own count, the largest religious gathering in the entire ancient world. 700,000 pilgrims attended every year, just to honor cats. For comparison, in the entire ancient world, no other festival drew even half that number. The pilgrims came by boat down the Nile, by foot across the desert, by donkey caravan from as far away as Nubia and Libya. Some brought cats they had raised especially for the occasion. Some came simply to pray before the great statue of the goddess. All of them came for one reason: to be in the presence of the sacred. And the love of cats permeated every form of Egyptian art. Wealthy Egyptians commissioned bronze cat statues for their homes, many of which survive today in museums like the Louvre in Paris, the British Museum in London, the Brooklyn Museum in New York. One of the most famous is called the Geyer-Anderson cat, a bronze statue from around 600 BCE depicting a seated cat wearing gold earrings and a gold nose ring. She sits today in the British Museum, where millions of visitors walk past her every year, often without knowing her name. Cats appeared in tomb paintings, always shown sitting under the chairs of the deceased, accompanying them into the afterlife. They appeared on amulets worn around the necks of pregnant women for protection. They appeared on children's wooden toys. They appeared on royal seals and royal jewelry. In every aspect of Egyptian visual culture, for over 3,000 years, the cat was present. And these cats were not anonymous. The Egyptians, unlike most ancient peoples, named their cats and recorded those names in their tombs and on their monuments. We know dozens of these ancient cat names today. There was Nejem, meaning sweetie, the cat of a priest named Puimre during the reign of Pharaoh Hatshepsut around 1500 BCE, one of the oldest named cats in human history. There was Chow, simply meaning the cat. There was Paket Nefer, beautiful lioness. There was Mit, little lady. And there was one cat whose name has become more famous in modern times than any other ancient Egyptian cat. A cat named Ta-Miu. Her name means simply the she-cat. She was the beloved companion of a real Egyptian prince, a prince whose story is going to break your heart. But before we tell you that story, we need to return to the Persians, because all of this, the goddess, the temples, the laws, the love, all of it was about to become Egypt's greatest weakness. And now, we return to the year 525 BCE, to a Persian king who has just learned everything I have told you, and who is about to use it as a weapon. His full name was Cambyses II. He was the son of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire and one of the greatest military commanders in human history. Cyrus had built an empire stretching from the Aegean Sea to the borders of India, the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. When Cyrus died in battle in 530 BCE, fighting nomadic tribes far to the northeast, his son Cambyses inherited everything: the throne, the empire, the army, and one unfinished project. Cyrus had always intended to conquer Egypt. He had never gotten the chance. Now, Cambyses would finish what his father had started. But Cambyses was not just a soldier. According to the historian Herodotus, who interviewed Persians who had lived through this era, Cambyses was a meticulous planner. Before he marched against any enemy, he sent spies, hundreds of them. And before he marched against Egypt, he spent 2 full years gathering intelligence. He wanted to know everything: their army size, their fortifications, their supply lines, their religion, their culture, their weaknesses. His spies returned with detailed reports. The Egyptian army was strong, about 100,000 professional soldiers. The fortress city of Pelusium, guarding Egypt's eastern border, was well defended. The new pharaoh, Psamtik III, was young, inexperienced, only 6 months on the throne. But all of this was standard military intelligence. The fourth finding, the one his advisors thought was irrelevant, was the one Cambyses fixated on. The Egyptians worshipped cats. Killing a cat was punishable by death. To an Egyptian soldier, harming a cat was not just illegal, it was spiritually unthinkable. It would damn his soul for eternity. His advisors saw this report as a curious cultural footnote. Cambyses saw it as something else entirely. He saw a weapon. Cambyses called his generals to a private council. He laid out his plan. According to the 2nd century writer Polyaenus, a Greek Macedonian military historian who collected and preserved hundreds of ancient battlefield stratagems in his work called Stratagemata, Cambyses ordered his army to do something no military force had ever done before. They would not fight the Egyptians with conventional weapons, at least not at first. Every Persian soldier would be issued an additional weapon for the front line. Each soldier would carry into battle either a living cat from one of the surrounding villages or a shield with the painted image of the goddess Bastet on its front.
This is the secret that will end the Egyptian Empire. Yes, the sacred cat.
The Persian front line would not advance with swords drawn. They would advance with cats in their arms. The Egyptian archers, faced with this impossible sight, would have to make a choice: fire and risk killing the sacred animals of their goddess, or hold their fire and let the Persians walk right up to their walls. Cambyses believed they would hold their fire. His generals, after the initial shock, agreed. And let me be completely honest with you here, because credibility matters. The story of the cats at Pelusium comes primarily from one source: Polyaenus, a Greek Macedonian writer who wrote his book of military stratagems around 163 of the Common Era, about 700 years after the battle itself. The earlier Greek historian Herodotus, who wrote about the same battle around 450 BCE, mentions Cambyses' victory, but does not mention the cats. Some modern historians believe Polyaenus' account is exaggerated. Others believe it preserves a real, if perhaps embellished, military tactic. What we know for certain is that the battle happened. Egypt fell, the Persians won, and whatever the exact details of the cat tactic, the Egyptian reverence for cats was real enough that a story like this could be told and believed for 2,000 years. Now, let us return to that morning at Pelusium. For weeks before the battle, the Persian army made the strangest preparations in military history. Soldiers spent entire days in workshops carefully painting images of the goddess Bastet onto every shield, using the brightest pigments they could find to make sure the images would be unmistakable from a distance. Scouts visited every Egyptian village along the route, gently capturing stray cats and placing them in wooden cages with food and fresh water. The Persian army actually employed specialized animal handlers, usually responsible for the cavalry's horses, to inspect every captured cat, treat any injuries, and keep them healthy. Soldiers trained to march in formation while carrying live cats in their arms. At night, around the campfires, those soldiers fed the cats from their own meals. By the time the Persian army arrived at the border of Egypt, at the fortress city of Pelusium, every frontline Persian soldier was equipped with two things: a weapon and a cat. The Persian army arrived at Pelusium in the spring of 525 BCE. Pelusium was Egypt's eastern shield, a fortress city at the easternmost mouth of the Nile, the gateway to the entire Nile Delta. Beyond Pelusium lay nothing but open road to the capital city of Memphis. If Pelusium fell, Egypt fell. The Egyptian army had spent months preparing the city's defenses. The young pharaoh Psamtik III had personally inspected the walls. The garrison was at full strength: professional soldiers, expert archers, mercenary Greek hoplites Egypt had hired for the war. From the walls of Pelusium, Egyptian sentries watched the Persian army arrive and camp on the eastern plain. They saw what they expected to see: chariots, horses, war wagons, supply trains. What they could not see from that distance was what was happening inside the special enclosure at the center of the Persian camp. They could not see the hundreds of cats. They could not see Cambyses' secret weapon. Not yet. On the morning of the battle, both armies arrayed themselves for combat. The Egyptian commander gave the order to prepare for battle. Egyptian archers nocked their arrows and drew their bows. Egyptian spearmen locked their shields together. Pharaoh Psamtik III watched from his chariot at the rear of the formation. The Persian army formed up in 3 lines. The third line, held in reserve, was regular infantry. The second line, standard shields and spears, and the first line, the front line, the line that would meet the Egyptian arrows first, took a step forward together. And the Egyptians saw what the Persians were carrying. And then the Egyptians saw them. Every Persian shield, bearing the painted face of Bastet, their most sacred goddess. Every Persian soldier in the front line, cradling a living cat in his arms. Their goddess, in the hands of the enemy. Held forward as a shield between the enemy army and their own arrows. The Egyptian archers had a choice: fire and risk killing the sacred animals of their goddess Bastet, the same animals their laws called more valuable than human life, the same animals their priests had taught them since childhood were the earthly presence of the divine, or hold their fire and let the Persians walk right up to their walls. To an Egyptian soldier in 525 BCE, this was not a tactical dilemma. This was a spiritual catastrophe. To release an arrow that struck a cat, even by accident, would damn his eternal soul. It would bring the wrath of every god in Egypt down upon him, his family, his city. It would mean that he, personally, had killed the goddess herself. And so the Persian army marched, not at full charge, not with battle cries. They advanced at the slow, deliberate pace of a religious procession. The Persian soldiers carrying cats moved with extreme gentleness, almost reverently, keeping their cats calm. The Bastet painted shields caught the morning sun. The Egyptian archers stood frozen, bows still drawn, arrows still nocked. They could not fire. The Persian front line crossed 200 paces of open ground, then 150 paces, then 100. The Egyptians did not move. They could not move. Their entire religion was walking toward them in the arms of the enemy. Slow tracking shot following the Persian advance. Pullback at end to show the Egyptian formation stepping backward. What followed was not a battle. It was a surrender of the soul. The Egyptian formation broke, but not out of cowardice. Egyptian soldiers were among the bravest in the ancient world. They broke because they could not do what war required them to do. They could not fire on their gods. Some Egyptian soldiers actually ran into the gap between the armies, not to attack the Persians, but to rescue stray cats that had escaped their carriers, terrified of being trampled in the chaos. According to later accounts, one Egyptian soldier was found after the battle, still kneeling in the sand, cradling a kitten he had saved, while the Persian army marched past him. The Persians, knowing exactly what they had done, did not harm him. They left him alive with his cat. The Egyptian banner of the pharaoh, the falcon of Horus, fell into the dust. The eastern Egyptian camp was overrun. Pelusium's gates, undefended now, opened to the Persians. The pharaoh, Psamtik III, fled west toward Memphis with the remnants of his army. Within weeks, the Persian army marched west and besieged the Egyptian capital city of Memphis. The young pharaoh Psamtik III, having ruled for less than 1 year, surrendered without further resistance. According to Herodotus, Cambyses initially treated the captured pharaoh with respect. He was given a place in the Persian court. Egypt was formally added to the Persian Empire as a satrapy, a province ruled by Persian governors. The pharaonic dynasty that had ruled Egypt for over 2,000 years, since the time of Narmer, the first pharaoh, was over. Egypt would not be ruled by an Egyptian again for nearly 200 years. Cambyses had not just conquered Egypt. He had conquered Egypt with the most audacious psychological tactic in ancient military history. He had won by understanding, better than the Egyptians did themselves, the terrible cost of their own devotion. The story you have just heard comes from a specific historical source, and I want to read it to you in the original so you can judge for yourself. It is from Polyaenus' Stratagemata, The Stratagems of War, Book 7, Chapter 9, written around 163 of the Common Era. Polyaenus was a Greek Macedonian author who collected over 900 military stratagems from across the ancient world and presented them to the Roman emperors Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus as a strategic guidebook. Here is what he wrote in direct translation. Cambyses, marching against Pelusium, which guarded the entrance into Egypt, was met by the Egyptians, who defended the pass with great resolution. The Egyptians fielded a powerful force of artillery, threw darts at his ships, hurled stones from their slings, and shot arrows. To counter this, Cambyses ranged before his front line dogs, sheep, cats, ibises, and whatever other animals the Egyptians hold sacred. The Egyptians immediately stopped their operations out of fear of hurting the sacred animals. Cambyses thus captured Pelusium, and by this stratagem opened himself a way into the rest of Egypt. That is the entire historical account. From this single passage, written 700 years after the event, comes one of the most famous battle stories of the ancient world. And whether you believe every detail or not, one thing is undeniable. The Egyptians loved cats so deeply that the world believed they would surrender an empire to save them. And in a way, they did. But before we leave the story of Egyptian cats, there is one more story I need to tell you. A story that has nothing to do with empires or battles. A story about a single boy and a single cat. To find this story, we have to go back in time, 855 years before the Battle of Pelusium, to the height of Egyptian power, to the reign of one of the wealthiest, most magnificent pharaohs Egypt ever produced, to the royal palace of Thebes, around the year 1380 BCE. Pharaoh Amenhotep III ruled Egypt from approximately 1391 to 1353 BCE. His reign was the absolute peak of Egyptian wealth and power. He built the great mortuary temple at Qom el-Hitan. He commissioned the colossal statues we now call the Colossi of Memnon. He filled royal treasuries with gold from Nubia. His wife, Queen T, was one of the most influential women in all of Egyptian history, possibly the most powerful queen Egypt ever had. They had several children, but their eldest son, the one being raised from birth to become the next pharaoh of Egypt, was a boy named Thutmose. We don't know exactly when he was born. We know he was the firstborn son. We know he was given the finest education in Egypt, taught by the highest priests, the greatest scribes, the most skilled military instructors.
What is this called, Thutmose?
Ta-Miu, Your Majesty.
He was being trained to rule the most powerful kingdom on earth. And of all the treasures in the royal palace at Thebes, of all the gold, all the slaves, all the chariots, the one possession that the young prince loved most was something that had cost almost nothing. A small striped kitten that someone, we do not know who, had given him as a gift. He named her Ta-Miu. In ancient Egyptian, her name was written as Ta-Miat, and it means simply the she-cat. Prince Thutmose, by all the historical records we have, was an unusual royal son. Unlike his younger brother, who would later become the famous heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, Thutmose was a quiet, scholarly, deeply religious young man. He was uninterested in the military arts that other princes pursued. Instead, he was drawn to religion and learning. By his early 20s, Prince Thutmose had been appointed to one of the most prestigious religious offices in all of Egypt, High Priest of Ta at the ancient capital city of Memphis. This was an extraordinary position. The High Priest of Ta oversaw the worship of the Creator God in one of Egypt's most sacred temples. Few royals had ever held this office. Thutmose was being prepared to be a different kind of pharaoh than his father, perhaps a more spiritual, more contemplative king. And throughout this remarkable life of religious devotion, Ta-Miu, his cat, was always with him. Cats in the ancient world rarely lived more than 15 years. We do not know the exact span of Ta-Miu's life, but we know she lived long enough to grow old beside Prince Thutmose, to watch him grow from a boy to a man, to watch him become high priest, to watch him prepare to one day become pharaoh. We do not have his diary, we do not have personal letters, but we know that the relationship between them was profound. We know this not from any historian's account, but from what Thutmose did at the end of Ta-Miu's life. What he did was so extraordinary, so unprecedented for an animal in ancient Egypt, that it has survived 3,400 years to reach us today. Sometime around the year 1352 BCE, Ta-Miu died. We don't know if she died of old age. We don't know if she died in his arms. We don't know if he was there. But we know that her death broke him in a way nothing in his royal life had prepared him for. Because Prince Thutmose did not bury Ta-Miu the way Egyptians typically buried their cats, in a simple linen wrapping in a family plot or as a votive offering in a temple. He did something no one in Egyptian history had ever done before. He buried her like royalty. Prince Thutmose commissioned a limestone sarcophagus for Ta-Miu, a sarcophagus identical in style, craftsmanship, and ceremonial inscription to those reserved for royalty. The sarcophagus was approximately 64 centimeters long, the exact size needed for a mummified cat. He had Ta-Miu's body mummified using the same elaborate process used for queens and princes, wrapped in fine linen, anointed with 7 sacred oils. The sarcophagus was carved with hieroglyphic prayers to 3 of the most powerful goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon: Isis, Nephthys, and Nut, asking each one to protect Ta-Miu in the afterlife. These were prayers normally reserved for human royals. On the sides of the sarcophagus, carved reliefs show Ta-Miu seated before an offering table laden with bread, beer, and roast geese, the same offerings prepared for the souls of dead kings. And on the front of the sarcophagus, one inscription has survived perfectly intact to this day. It is written from the cat's own voice, as Egyptian funerary prayers traditionally were. It reads, in direct translation from the original hieroglyphs, "I myself am placed among the imperishable ones that are in the sky, for I am Ta-Miu, the triumphant." The triumphant, Ma-Keru in ancient Egyptian, was the highest spiritual title an Egyptian soul could be given. It meant the soul had passed the final judgment. The soul was worthy. The soul was vindicated. Prince Thutmose gave his cat the same eternal title that pharaohs claimed for themselves. Within a few years of Ta-Miu's burial, Prince Thutmose himself died. Suddenly, unexpectedly. We do not know the cause. He was still a young man, probably in his late 20s or early 30s. His death is one of the great unsolved mysteries of Egyptian history. Because of his unexpected death, the throne of Egypt passed to his younger brother, a man named Amenhotep IV, a man who, within a few years of becoming pharaoh, would change his name to one we all know today, Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh. The pharaoh who tried to overthrow Egypt's traditional gods and replace them with the worship of a single sun disk, the Aten. The pharaoh whose religious revolution would tear Egyptian society apart, whose own name would later be erased from monuments, and whose son would inherit a chaotic, weakened Egypt. That son's name? Tutankhamun, the Boy King, the most famous pharaoh of all time. If Prince Thutmose had lived, if he had taken the throne as planned, there would have been no Akhenaten, possibly no Tutankhamun. The religious revolution that nearly destroyed Egypt would never have happened. The entire trajectory of Egyptian and arguably world history might have been different. But Prince Thutmose did not live. He died young. And the only personal artifact that survives from his entire short royal life, the only thing we have that proves what kind of man he was, is a small limestone sarcophagus, made not for himself, but for his cat. In the year 1892, 3,244 years after Prince Thutmose buried his cat, a team of archaeologists working near the ruins of ancient Memphis uncovered the sarcophagus of Ta-Miu. They were not looking for it. They had no idea it existed. When they cleaned the limestone surface and read the inscriptions, they realized exactly what they had found. A royal sarcophagus, commissioned by a crown prince of Egypt's most powerful dynasty, made not for a king or a queen or a noble, but for a single beloved cat. The sarcophagus was carefully catalogued. It was assigned the inventory number JE30172, the registration number it still bears today at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. In that moment, separated by 33 centuries, the modern world finally met Prince Thutmose. Not through his royal tomb, we have never found it, not through his royal monuments, almost none survive, but through a small stone box he had commissioned for the cat he loved. Today, you can visit Ta-Miu's sarcophagus at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It is catalogued under inventory number JE30172. It is one of the smallest, quietest, and most heartbreaking artifacts in the entire museum. Most visitors walk right past it. They are too busy looking at the golden masks of Tutankhamun, the colossal mummies of pharaohs, the grand monuments of kings. But sometimes, a child stops. A child sees the small stone box. A child reads the label, Sarcophagus of a Beloved Cat. And that child, without knowing it, meets Prince Thutmose for the first time. Across 3,400 years, through nothing more than the love he had for one small striped cat named the she-cat. But Egypt's love of cats has a darker side. A side that historians and archaeologists rarely tell the general public. Over the course of approximately 700 years, from roughly 700 BCE to 30 BCE, Egyptians mummified cats. A lot of cats. By modern archaeological estimates, the total number of cats mummified in ancient Egypt during this period is somewhere between 70 and 100 million. 70 million cats. Carefully wrapped, carefully blessed, carefully buried. To put that number in perspective, that is more cats than there are humans in modern Egypt today. To understand why ancient Egyptians mummified so many cats, you have to understand how their religion worked. In ancient Egyptian belief, the gods could be petitioned for favors. You wanted to pray for a sick child to recover? You wanted to ask for a successful harvest. You wanted protection during childbirth. You did not simply pray in your home. You traveled to a temple. You purchased a votive offering, a sacred object that you would dedicate to the relevant god. For Bastet, the goddess of homes, motherhood, fertility, and protection, the votive offering was a mummified cat. The pilgrim purchased the mummy at the temple, brought it before the altar of Bastet, whispered her prayer, and left the mummy as a permanent dedication. The cat would then serve as her ongoing connection to the goddess, eternally praying on her behalf. It was a beautiful, deeply devotional practice. But it also created a problem, a staggering problem. Where do you get 70 million cats? To meet the staggering demand for cat mummies, the Egyptians established what archaeologists now call cat farms or breeding facilities. These were specialized industrial complexes, usually attached to major temples like the Temple of Bastet at Bubastis or the Temple of Pakhet at Beni Hassan. Modern archaeological analysis of cat mummies, particularly studies published by researchers at the University of Manchester and the American University in Cairo, has revealed unsettling details. The vast majority of cat mummies analyzed by modern science come from cats that were killed when they were young, typically between 2 months and 2 years old. Many show signs of having had their necks deliberately broken. Egyptologist Dr. Salima Ikram of the American University in Cairo, one of the world's leading experts on Egyptian animal mummies, has documented this practice in detail in her book Divine Creatures, published by the American University in Cairo Press in 2005. It is, by any modern measure, large-scale animal sacrifice, conducted by the same civilization that, in their own homes, wept for the death of their personal pet cats. How could the same civilization that mourned the death of a single pet cat by shaving their eyebrows, that punished accidental cat killers with execution, that, according to legend, surrendered an entire empire rather than harm a cat, also kill cats by the millions in temple farms? Historians and ethicists still debate this paradox today. Some scholars, like Dr. Salima Ikram, argue that the Egyptians made a clear distinction between temple cats, which were considered sacred vessels for offerings to the goddess, almost like living candles, and family cats, which were beloved companions. The two categories occupied entirely different mental and religious spaces. Others believe the Egyptians simply did not see the contradiction the way we do today. To them, sending a cat to be with Bastet through ritual sacrifice was not killing the cat, it was sending the cat home to the goddess herself. The cat became, in their view, an eternal messenger between the pilgrim and the divine. Whether or not we accept that view today, and most modern people, understandably, do not, one thing is undeniably true. Ancient love is complicated. Ancient devotion can take forms that modern hearts struggle to comprehend. And history demands that we look at all of it, the beauty and the horror. By the time the Roman general Octavian, soon-to-be Emperor Augustus, conquered Egypt in 30 BCE, ending the reign of Cleopatra and 3,000 years of pharaonic rule, the catacombs beneath the Temple of Bubastis held millions of mummified cats. They had been there for centuries, carefully wrapped, carefully placed, carefully forgotten. The Roman conquerors had no interest in Egyptian cat worship. The temples gradually fell into ruin. The pilgrims stopped coming. The sand of the Nile Delta slowly covered everything. The cats slept beneath the desert for 2,000 years. In the year 1888, 138 years ago, a simple Egyptian farmer was plowing a field outside the village of Beni Hassan in Middle Egypt. His wooden plow caught on something hard. He stopped to investigate, and what he found beneath his field was almost beyond comprehension. An ancient cat necropolis, but not a small one. Beni Hassan held, by archaeological estimates published in the Journal of the Egypt Exploration Fund in the years following the discovery, between 80,000 and 300,000 mummified cats. They were piled in vast underground chambers, perfectly preserved by the dry desert sand. Each one had been wrapped, blessed, and dedicated to the goddess Bastet over 2,000 years earlier. The farmer ran to tell the village elders. The elders contacted the local authorities. The authorities contacted the British colonial administration that controlled Egypt at the time. And what happened next is one of the most heartbreaking and embarrassing chapters in the entire history of archaeology. A chapter that the British Museum, to its credit, has formally acknowledged and apologized for in recent decades. In the year 1890, a decision was made by the British antiquities trade in Alexandria. The cat mummies of Beni Hassan, they decided, had no significant commercial or scholarly value. They could not be sold as individual collector items. They could not be displayed as art. But Victorian England's industrial agriculture had a desperate need for cheap fertilizer to grow wheat and potatoes in the depleted soils of British farms. The decision was made. The cat mummies were sold by the ton. Approximately 19 tons of ancient Egyptian cat mummies were loaded onto cargo ships at the port of Alexandria. They were shipped across the Mediterranean Sea, through the Strait of Gibraltar, up the coast of Western Europe, to the docks of Liverpool, England. There, the crates were unloaded. Hundreds of thousands of ancient mummified cats, each one wrapped in linen by an Egyptian artisan 2,000 years earlier, each one blessed by a priest of Bastet, each one purchased by a pilgrim with prayers for protection, were ground into powder in industrial mills. The powder was sold to British farmers as cheap fertilizer to grow vegetables. The transaction was reported in the British newspaper The Liverpool Mercury on the 5th of February 1890. The article noted with no apparent shame the quantity processed: 19 tons, hundreds of thousands of cats, each one loved by an ancient Egyptian 2,000 years earlier. Each one of those cats had once been a life. A small striped creature that 2,000 years earlier walked through an Egyptian village, ate scraps from a kitchen floor, slept on a cushion in someone's home, was loved by a child, and then was offered up, in a moment of devotion the ancient world considered sacred, to a goddess who would protect that family forever. 2,000 years later, in a country none of those cats had ever heard of, they were ground into dust to grow grain. We cannot undo what was done. We cannot bring them back. But we can do one thing. We can remember them. We can speak their absence. We can say, simply, "You were here. You mattered. We are sorry." Because that alone is the entire purpose of a museum, even a virtual one. But the story of the Egyptian cat does not end with mummies and grain fields. Modern DNA analysis has revealed something extraordinary. The 2017 study I mentioned earlier, published in Nature, Ecology and Evolution by Dr. Claudio Ottoni and an international team of geneticists, analyzed ancient DNA from over 200 cat remains, including samples from Egyptian mummies at Bubastis and Beni Hassan. Their results proved that every domestic cat alive on Earth today carries DNA from Egyptian ancestors. Specifically, they found that there were two great waves of cat dispersal from Egypt. The first wave happened during the New Kingdom period, Prince Thutmose's era, when Egyptian merchants and sailors began carrying ship's cats across the Mediterranean to control rodents. The second wave happened during the Greek and Roman empires, when Egyptian cats spread to every corner of the Roman world. From there, they traveled the Silk Road to China, sailed with Viking longships to Scandinavia, crossed with European colonists to the Americas. When you pet your cat tonight, when she curls up on your lap, when she purrs against your chest, you are touching a direct descendant of the cats that lived in the homes of ancient Egyptians 3,000 years ago. The same cats that Prince Thutmose loved. The same cats that froze the bowstrings of Egyptian archers at the Battle of Pelusium. The same cats that were dedicated to Bastet. Their genes, their living lineage, are with us right now in every home on every continent. Tonight, if you have a cat, go look at her. Look at her eyes. Look at the shape of her ears. Look at the way she sits, tall, alert, regal, almost like a temple statue. She is, almost unchanged in 3,000 years, the same creature that Prince Thutmose held in his arms, the same creature that helped the Persian advance for one terrible morning at Pelusium, the same creature that was wrapped in fine linen and laid in catacombs to dream of a goddess named Bastet. Cats today are unique among animals. They are the only domestic species that essentially domesticated itself. They came to humans on their own terms. They stayed because they chose to. They have lived beside us, sharing our homes, our beds, our food, our love for nearly 10,000 years. And it all began in Egypt. The Virtual Animal Museum now has 2 permanent exhibits, the Kunga of Sumer and the Sacred Cats of Egypt. Ta-Miu has her place. Prince Thutmose's love has its home. The Egyptian archers who could not fire have their memorial. The 70 million cats of the catacombs and the 19 tons that became fertilizer, they have, at last, a small place where their story is told with the seriousness and the sorrow it deserves. 13 more exhibits await, 13 more civilizations, 13 more forgotten animals whose true stories we are going to tell, one by one, together. If the story of Ta-Miu moved you, if you found yourself thinking about your own cat differently tonight, please subscribe. Every week, we resurrect one more forgotten animal, one more witness to human history, one more story that should never have been forgotten. Share this episode with someone who loves cats. Comment below, what did you know about ancient Egyptian cats before this episode? Did you know about Ta-Miu? Did you know about the 19 tons? And what animal do you want us to cover next? Soon, every story from this museum will live not just on this channel, but as a permanent home on the web, where Ta-Miu, the Kunga, and every animal who shaped human history will rest in honor forever.